Music guy is asking, is Iran trying to pick a fight with Azerbaijan as tensions between them heighten? No, they're not trying to pick a fight with them. They're feeling threatened by Azerbaijan. This tiny little country with a tiny little army is threatening the Islamic Republic of Iran because of many reasons. Let me see if I could list all of them, right? From the least important to the most important. Okay, least important was recently Azerbaijan stopped the trucks from Iran going to Azerbaijan and started, asking for a fee for like the trucks that used to be free flowing to Armenian, or you people know it as Armenia, and now they apparently Azerbaijan is like, ever since we're here, we won the war against them. You don't get to do that anymore. And Iran is like, what? So that was the least, the beginning of the tension started with that, right? The second most important thing, second to last most important thing, was that Azerbaijan, Pakistan, and Turkey, started to do some military, what is it called? Tamreen, like some military, what is it called when people like just do like a fake war? Like, what is it called? I consume these news in Persian. Let me see. Pakistan, Azerbaijan, and Turkey. I'm sure if I search for these three countries. Drills. Yes, drills. They did some military drills close to the border of Iran. All right. And guys, what is... No, not proxy war. Drills. They did some drills close to the border of Azerbaijan and Iran. And what is the similarity between, like, so if you think about Pakistan and Turkey, right? They're both Muslim Brotherhood-ish. Okay? But let me come back to that, because there's three Islamic forces in and around Middle East, and Azerbaijan should be on Iran's side, given that they're Shia, but they're not. They're on Turkey. They're on the Turkey side, which is more Muslim Brotherhood-ish. Okay, we're going to get back to the power dynamics between these forces. Okay, hold on. Let me highlight the question again. Okay. So this was the second thing that was pissed off Iran's government. The third and the most important reason why any form of military drills or military activity around the borders of Iran by Azerbaijan pisses them off and scares the bejesus out of them is what? Come on, guys. What is the third most important? What is the most important reasons? You know this. You guys know this. I want to see if you guys know your stuff. Anybody? No? Okay, I'm just going to say it. Israel. Azerbaijan is very close to Israel. Okay, hold on. Let me see. I think Azerbaijan gets 60 or 70% of its military from Israel. Let me see. Azerbaijan, is it military Israel? They're very close. They're buddies. How many percentage? Somebody tell me. I think it was 60% or 70%. It's not telling me. Okay, it's either one of those things. It's either... Yeah, music guy. I thought you would have the answer here. It would... Yeah, it's either 60 or 70. I forgot which one it was. But that's a huge chunk. Okay? And they also... I think... And also Israel buys fuel from Azerbaijan as well. I think, yeah, it's either... Yeah, so Azerbaijan buys military equipment from Israel, and Israel buys, I don't know, is it gas or oil? Some sort of carbon fuel. Or is it gasoline? Yeah. Anyways, they're pretty close. They're pretty close. And to a lot of people, this seems like very bizarre, because what is the religion in Azerbaijan? What is the religion in Azerbaijan? Tony B is saying, you are a liar. About what? Everything I'm saying is well established. Guys, come on. You guys should be good at this. What is the main religion? Yes, Shia. Okay, good job. So Iran is Shia, and Azerbaijan is Shia. So Aryan is saying Islam. Yeah, but it's not just Islam. It's Shia Islam. Okay? So Iran is Shia. Azerbaijan is Shia. And yet you would think that these Iran, like, given that Iran goes and finds proxies around its borders, and the main places where it finds proxies is Shia places, right? It goes into Iraq. Iraq is mostly Shia. It goes to Syria. Syria is mostly Sunni, but the government is Shia, so it uses the government, right? It goes to Afghanistan and finds the Shia areas and uses there to create this Fatimian proxies in Afghanistan. Everywhere it goes into Lebanon, gets the Shias there to unite with Iran. Everywhere Iran goes, the number one strategy is to use the Shia community, the Shia population of that country, as a way to, grow its tentacles there and create proxy groups, right? So how come with Azerbaijan, a country that is majority Shia, right next to its borders, the allies of these countries are either Sunni or Israel? Azerbaijan's friends are Pakistan, Turkey, which are Sunni, and Israel. How did that happen? How did they not get closer, given that they're both Shia? Why they're not closer? What is the tension, do you think here? What is the main source of tension? Yeah, 70s music guy. Oh yes, D is correct. Another thing Trump did right was the Abraham Accords. Okay, yes, D, you're right. Only two things Trump did right. The tension between Azerbaijan and Iran is not religious in nature, it's ethnic. Okay? Azerbaijan was part of Iran before the Russians came and took it. And then when the Soviet Union fell apart, Azerbaijan actually came and offered to join Iran. Be like, can we just like be part of Iran now? And Hashemi Rafsanjani said, like, apparently there's audio of him that exists, and they're like, nope, no thank you. So they could have been part of Iran, and they're not. They were refused, right? So they became an independent country, but now I think they regret that. Okay, so the problem with Azerbaijan is, as a country, the name of Azerbaijan, so they're Turkish, right? These people are Turkish, and there's Turkish separatist groups right across the border in Iran. Okay, and the province which they live in Iran is called, repeat after me, Azerbaijan, right? So we have an Azerbaijan country and we have an Azerbaijan province, which is a province in Iran, and they're right next to each other, okay? And the people who are separatists in Iran, who want this to want to be like become a, free the Turks in Iran from Iran, they refer to Azerbaijan, as the province of Azerbaijan in Iran, as South Azerbaijan, as in we're gonna join the other Azerbaijan one day, right? So this is very, the main forces Iran's government is afraid of is not like the people, like the secular people or the people who want secular democracy, who come out once every year or so and protest in the street. That is not what they're afraid of. The main groups Iran that the government of Iran is afraid of are these separatist groups, either Turkish separatist groups, Arab separatist groups. What did I say? Kurdish, Turkish, and Arab separatist groups. Oh, and also Baluchi ones in the east, right? I think that's about it. Oh, now with the Taliban, we have the Khorasani separatist group. Great, we have separatist groups everywhere, right? So that's what they're terrified about. In fact, they were in a war right after the Islamic Revolution of Iran in 1979, there was a war, civil war with the Kurds, which my uncle died in, right? My uncle was a soldier on the Iranian side fighting against the Kurds, and he got shot in his tummy, and he went to the hospital, and he didn't die from the bullet. He died from infection inside the hospital, while my mom was taking care of her as a nurse. So my mom was a nurse, and she happened to be his nurse while he was dying in the hospital. So what was I saying? Oh, yeah. So the issue is that Iran has been trying to use its proxy groups all around the Middle East to surround Israel, right? So they're like, we got you from Gaza, we got you from the north with Hezbollah, so we got you from Gaza with Hamas. Like, Iran is the main, one of the main, or by now I think the main supporter of Hamas. I could be wrong about that. If not the main supporter of Hamas, is one of the main supporters of Hamas. So they're like, they're trying to surround Israel from all corners, right? Like, they're like, we got you from Gaza by Hamas, and we got you from Syria, because now we have all our proxies in Syria, and we have you from the top from Hezbollah. So we're like, Iran is like, we're surrounding Israel for the day that we capture Jerusalem. Like, this is the ultimate goal, right? Again, you remember Qasem Soleimani, the group that he's in charge of is called Quds, the Quds Army. The Quds Army, which is the foreign force, the beyond the border military arm of the IRGC, is named Quds, the one that Qasem Soleimani was in charge of, right? Quds means what? Quds means Jerusalem, right? Quds means, actually, no, Quds means the Dome of the Rock. Like, that's where they want to. Wait, Quds means Jerusalem or the Dome of the Rock? One of those, doesn't matter. That's basically the name. That's the CIA and that's the CIA, FBI, and of Iran. And it's as if the CIA had a military, that is what it is for Iran, right? So, no, not the FBI. It would be more of a CIA of Iran, right? Imagine if the CIA in the United States was named Tehran, right? That would be weird, right? So the CIA in Iran is not named CIA. It's named after Jerusalem, which is a city in Israel, because that's their final destination. And they're with all these proxies, they've been trying to surround Israel, right? So now their grip is loosening up a little bit because of the sanctions, and also because of the people in these countries are tired of Iran's influence. One reason why we're seeing in the Iraq's elections just recently, the Shia forces are losing their seats and losing power, is because of the people in these countries are getting angry of how much Iran has influence over their policies, over their foreign policies. Like, Iraqi people are like treating our country like a chessboard between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Like, we want our own politicians that care about our own issues here at home, rather than you guys are using this as a battleground, right? So as Iran's, again, this might change. Iran's grip might get tighter in the future, but right now it seems like it's loosening. At least that's what it seems like. As you know, and also Israel keeps hitting so many of Iran's bases in Syria. Like, I don't know if you guys know, like, there's constantly, like, it doesn't make it in the news anymore. Like, Israeli planes are all over Syria and just they're taking out Iranian bases. So much so that Russia is not talking to Israel about, like, we need to figure this out because our people, like, we're also active there. But as this grip is loosening, Israel is now doing its own, it's doing a no reverse card on Iran, okay? Because Iran was like, hey, Israel, we're right at your border. Like, we have the Iranian Empire is now borders Israel. Like, you used to be scared of Iran when we were all the way over there. But hello, we're knocking at your door. We're right in Syria. This is our proxy government now. They were bragging about the fact that they have Iraq and Syria. So any Iranian military truck, could now just, without any issue, could just drive from Iran all the way right to the borders of Israel. And they were bragging about that. And they're like, you guys know what this means. You guys are gonna just not be able to sleep. You all have to be able to, like, you have to sleep with one eye open, like, as you know. So that's what they were bragging about. Now Israel is like, well, guess what, motherfuckers? We're at your border now, right? Because Israel is like, just recently started going, Israel had the first flight, foreign diplomat of Israel came to Bahrain just recently, so right underneath Iran. So Bahrain and Israel are, so beyond that, just the Abrahamic Accords, right? Which Israel is now getting closer to the UAE and Egypt and everyone else in Sudan. But now also Bahrain. I don't know why that didn't get much more attention, because Bahrain is a big deal as well. That just recently happened. That happened during Biden's time, right? So like Israel is now to the southern borders of Iran, but also to the north in Azerbaijan. Like, look who's surrounding who now. We're right, like we be doing the knocking now. We're knocking from the south and we're knocking from the north. Like Azerbaijan is basically Israel's buddy right next to Iran, and also Bahrain now. So like and yeah, so things are not looking good when it comes to Israeli presence in the region. So Israel has decided, instead of like keep crying about like, oh my God, we have Iran, Iran is everywhere, Iran is here, Iran is over there, like what do we do? Instead of like just playing defense, they're like, you know what, we're going to play offense, we're going to show up at their neighborhood. So this is, I think, and that's what's happening. And this is why Iran is having huge tensions with Azerbaijan right now, and they can't even say it. They can't really publicly be anti-Azerbaijan, because Azerbaijan's main ally is not even Israel. Azerbaijan's main ally is Turkey. So much so that Azerbaijan and Turkey are acting like as if they're the same country. Like they're saying like two nations, one, I don't know, what are they saying? What's the chant that they go with? Two countries, one nation, something like that. We're two countries, but one nation, something like that. Like, so Turkey is Sunni, Azerbaijan is Shia, but their ethnic identity being the same, and cultural and ethnic identity being the same, has brought them closer together. Like the Shia identity hasn't brought Azerbaijan close to Iran, but the ethnic and cultural identity of Azerbaijan and Turkey has made them basically like they have completely ignored the fact that one of them is Sunni and the other one is Shia. It doesn't matter. This is like, guys, ethnic tensions is sometimes even a bigger deal in the Middle East than religious ones, right? So, and this is one example of that, right? What was I going to say? Oh, the last thing I want to bring to attention about this is that Israel is being very, very clever about all of this, right? Because there are three Islamic political forces around the Middle East, right? One is, and again, this is very loosely and simplified, and the lines are not very well defined, and it's mostly like you don't know where one of them stops and the other one begins at sometimes, okay? And there are also a lot of other groups that don't belong to any of these. Yes, I know, but these are the main biggest forces, right? You have the Velayat Faqih brand of Shia Islam, which is led by the Iranian government and is all over the region because of Iran's proxies and everybody that has ties to them. So the Shia force, again, not all Shias. Yes, I know. The Velayat Faqih brand of Shia Islam, that is the one group. The other group is the Wahhabi Islamic force. And again, I know not all of these people are Wahhabis themselves, but they're connected to it, right? Like the Sauds, the Emiratis, and anybody that is loyal to these groups, like like Egypt, right? So all the Gulf Arab states, not excluding Qatar, which is more on the last force that I'm going to mention, excluding Qatar, the Gulf Arab states, plus Egypt, right? So that block, that is one group. And the third group is the one that you could refer to as the Muslim Brotherhood bloc, right? Which would be Qatar, which would be Turkey, which could be Pakistan, and now it could be Afghanistan, right? Depending on which part of the Taliban gets the upper hand in Afghanistan. Right now in Afghanistan, we have basically either the Muslim Brotherhood kind of Islam, if the people who did the Doha negotiation from Taliban get the upper hand, that would be, or it would be more of the Wahhabi side, which is if the Haqqani network of Taliban get the upper hand, which is weird because the Haqqani group is the one that is more loyal to Pakistan, but we also mentioned Pakistan would be more of the Muslim Brotherhood side. That's why it gets a little bit complicated, right? But so these are the three main Islamic forces, and they are against each other, right? They hate each other, right? The two Sunni ones, you have one Shia one and two Sunni ones, right? The Wahhabi one and the Muslim Brotherhood one, they're Sunni. One of them is more of a monarchy type of Islamic government. The other one is like a more democracy, bring Islam to power with the election, which makes the Wahhabi one consider them a huge danger, because the Wahhabi Islamic countries, again, I know I'm losing these, they're not all Wahhabi, I'm just naming it because they're associated with each other, okay? So the Gulf Arab countries, not including Qatar, they see that model of Islamic power as a threat to them because they're monarchies, and that kind of Islamic power will basically reduce their legitimacy, because they believe in elections, they believe in getting Muslims in power through the ballot, and that's a major threat to the monarchs, right? And they're also very afraid of the Shia Islam, of the Iranian branch of Shia Islam, because that has been a huge aggressor. By the way, this is why in Egypt we had a major fight between the people that were closer to Saudis and the Emiratis and the Muslim Brotherhood. And the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, which was the birthplace of Muslim Brotherhood, fell apart, right? So you could see that battle being fought in Egypt, and you can now see that it's being fought to a lesser deal in Afghanistan, right? So what's happening in Azerbaijan is basically the continuation of Israel's policy in being allies with the two other forces that are not Iran, right? So remember we said there's three forces: the Shias, the Muslim Brotherhood kind, and the Wahhabi kind, right? So you saw it through the Abrahamic Accord, and now also Israel getting closer to Bahrain. You see that Israel was getting closer to these Gulf Arab countries, uniting against Iran, right? But now what you see is that Israel is also having a higher presence in Azerbaijan, is coming to that other part of the equation, because that's part of, has a closer tie with Turkey. And, again, Turkey and Israel have a tension between each other, but they're actually much more like, the tension seems to be more symbolic, because they actually have a lot of ties with each other. So we'll see, maybe Azerbaijan will become the backdoor way for these two to unite against Iran. The tension between Turkey and Iran represents a more ancient battle since the beginning of Islam, because the Arabs brought Islam, but as soon as they brought it, they lost all power over it, and it seemed like it was everybody else that was in power that were not Arabs for most of Islamic history, right? As soon as the Umayyad dynasty fell, the Abbasid dynasty was heavily Persian influenced, but then all of the history of Islam was run by empires that were not Arabs. They were the Arab ones were very insignificant compared to all the other Islamic powers in the world, where it was either Persian or Turkish, right? And the battle between the Turks and the Persians, as the Persian Empire and the Ottomans, was a continuation of more ancient battles before that between the Romans and the Persians and the Greeks and the Persians, right? And the Arabs seem to be just like, oh, we just birthed Islam into place, but then we were always like looking at, just like before Islam, the Arabs were just like these nomads that just looked at empires fighting with each other. They, for a very short time, they became the empire, and then they went back and set back again and they watched, even in the name of Islam, they watched empires fighting with each other, and they weren't the empires themselves. I mean, I know in Egypt they had like the Ismailis and the Fatimiyun and yeah, but it wasn't like as big as the other ones, right? So now that we're looking at the geopolitics in the Middle East, it seems like the two major ones was also, again, the Turkey and Iran. The only reason why the Arabs all of a sudden became significant is because they were sitting on black gold. So for a couple of decades, all of a sudden they became a major part of the equation again, because money was just pouring out of the ground, right? But they wasted it very fast. And now they're back to like, oh my God, we're like insignificant again. And it's going back to like Turkey-Iran situation. But Israel is like, hey, I can help make you significant again, because you guys seem to be not even with the best technology and the best military equipment in the world, you seem to be still losing somehow. So maybe you need some help. And these are the Gulf Arab countries are like, yes, please, anybody, like, if it takes Israel's help for us to defend ourselves against Iran, we'll take it, right? So that's what's, so Israel being an ally with Saudi Arabia again, and the Emirati country, the Emiratis and everyone else might like keep them. I don't know what's going to happen. Like once the price of oil drops like a rock, what's going to happen to Saudi Arabia? We'll see. So I'm not going to make any predictions, but Israel is like, okay, we're going to continue doing that. Like, so it's, it's very clever, because Israel has learned, just like Saudi Arabia has learned, that reliance on United States is not like a long-lasting strategy. So we're going to go and see who else is against Iran, and we're going to unite with every single one of them. That's the only thing it takes. Only thing it takes. As long as you're afraid of the Islamic Republic of Iran, we'll be there and we'll be allies. We don't have any other conditions. Right? All right, let's go to the live chat questions. Did that answer your question, Music Guy? Was that good? Let me know if you were satisfied or satisfied with everything. Music Guy saying, wow, got my money's worth of these questions. Thanks. Oh, look at this. You're welcome, Music Guy. I'm glad you're satisfied.
Hey guys, if you want to join these streams live, get your comments and questions read by Ali and Armin and the guests, and most importantly, to get full access to the full video versions of all these episodes, become a patron. Link in the description below.